Welcome to this week's program of Ascend Life on the Autism Spectrum. I'm Keith Halperin, your co-host, and this is Will Bernick.
Hi, Keith. Great to see you again.
Likewise. Today, our guests include Paul Nussbaum, Ascend board member and ski expedition leader, and Alex Buttery, Ascend member and educator. Will, would you take it from here?
Gladly, Keith. I have a couple of questions for Paul and Alex. My first question is for Paul. When did you know you had autism?
Well, I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when I was struggling with employment and social disconnect issues at the age of 40 which was 1997, about 16 years ago approximately. And that's when I first became aware of it. And before that, it was like the mystery disability, because I was still going through those struggles, but could not understand it, especially when I saw other people not having those same issues that I had with the social disconnect and the career and employment issues.
Tell us about how you graduated from college.
Well, I graduated from college. It was a long, hard struggle for me, and what happened was one of the big obstacles was making sure that I had all the material from the class lectures, because a lot of times the professor or the lecturer would give a lot of information very fast, and I wouldn't be able to get it all. And for me, that was a big stumbling block. But I managed to get past that, and what I had to do was just take fewer classes so then I could focus on those classes. And then from there, when I was able to focus, then I was very successful at getting through the classes, but it just took me longer to do that. But I eventually passed them and got my degree.
Tell us about your business.
I started a handyman business back in 1998 or 1999, when originally I got the idea because I was having struggles with employment issues and finding and fitting into a career after several failures with different endeavors. I realized that I had to support myself financially. It was financial survival, and so I came up with the idea of starting my handyman business. And the reason I came up with that is because I had certain skills in home repair and general home maintenance, and a lot of those I learned when I was in high school, and a lot of them were just chores that I had to do around the house. So I pieced all that together, and also, fortunately, I was in an area where there was a good market, so I was able to put all those elements together and start a successful business. And not to say that it was without its struggles. It had a lot of struggles, but I just persevered through them and just kept going one foot in front of the other. And that also helped me to be successful as well. And not to say that from the 15-year period that I had the business that it didn't go through. I mean, it had its downturns too, but I was able to, but it also had its successes. And it was a major milestone being able to complete that business. And part of it was, for me, was that it's like there were no other opportunities financially, so it's like I had no choice but to make it succeed. And so I was determined to do that.
How do you work well with other people at Ascend and on the autism spectrum?
Well, I work pretty well overall. I mean, I had my own adjustment issues and stressful situations, but I've learned at this point to work through those with not only other people on the autism spectrum and with Ascend, but in other situations as well, and also in situations that are particularly stressful, where we have to come up with solutions to different types of problems.
Paul, we understand that a number of years ago, a skiing and mountain climbing expedition across the Sierras. Can you tell us how you did that and what made you decide to originally plan and carry that out?
Yes, Keith. Well, originally I I had a vision for it back in 2004, 2 years before the expedition, when I was at a conference at an ASA, Autism Society of America conference up in Seattle. And what inspired me to do that expedition was seeing all the needs on the spectrum. I was walking down the streets of Seattle on one of our breaks, and then I came up with the idea, and I thought to myself, okay, we have all these issues that the autism community is struggling with, and I thought to myself, why don't I do something about it, try to do something about it. So then I came up with the idea of the Conquering Heights project, and then from there, then I continued to develop it. Not to say that it didn't have its challenges in the development process, but I was determined to do it, so I pushed through, and all the obstacles and the roadblocks, essentially pulled the stops out and just kept pushing forward and found my way to negotiate the roadblocks. And then from there, once the development process was complete, then I did practice runs. To make a long story short, practice run up in the Sierras at Greg Yates' cabin, and a 3-day practice run. Then from there, the month after that, then the ski expedition, the actual Conquering Heights ski expedition.
That's very interesting. Previous to the practice runs, had you a mountaineering and skiing background, or was this something pretty new for you?
I did. I have an extensive background. For one thing, I was stationed in North Dakota. I spent 3 years up in North Dakota, and they have very cold weather up there, like 20 degrees below zero blizzards. And I spent a lot of time outside skiing in the harsh elements there. That was one of them. And then in the 80s, I did snow camping. I learned snow camping originally with the Sierra Club, and then just did one trek after another. And then from the snow camping, I've done backpacking and just had extensive, through most of my life, I'd say probably 20, 30 years of backpacking and winter experience.
It sounds like you were very ready to go. Along those lines, what would you say, both as far as getting the expedition together, those roadblocks you were talking about, what were your greatest challenges, and what were your greatest challenges in the expedition itself?
Well, for me, the greatest challenges for me in negotiating the roadblocks for the project in the expedition was the fundraising and the outreach. Which I had help on, but still there was a lot of work to do. And then also the procurement of equipment and setting up the logistics and getting the team organized for that expedition. I had help, but still I had to organize a lot of those tasks. So for me, I think that was the biggest part, was the procurement, getting all the logistics before, and then came the expedition itself, and that was challenging. Had its challenges as well.
I can only imagine that, not being a mountaineer myself. I understand that we're going to have a few-minute segment of your Conquering the Heights video. Is that correct?
Yes, and this will show some of the footage. This is from that expedition.
Excellent. We'll lead into that shortly. Okay. That was very impressive, Paul.
Yes,
I'd
it was.
seen it before, but it really is rather amazing what you did.
It is amazing.
Thank you, Keith.
Yes. Well, you're very welcome. But I hear you're working on something even more impressive and ambitious. Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yes. I figured once I completed the Conquering Heights project across the Sierra Nevada, then I would have earned the right to do another, even a bigger project, and that is to ski across the ice cap of Greenland. A very similar project to what I did with Conquering Heights, except on a larger scale, and would have the same number of teammates, to expedition team members, to ski across the ice cap of Greenland. And I have to say that not being a professional expeditioner, even though with my experience I have a lot of knowledge, I cannot call myself a world-class expedition person. And that would, because I'm not in that category of of the world-class professional mountaineers. But with that said, being able to complete these tasks, I mean, being able to complete the expeditions would be a major milestone, and particularly the Greenland project.
I have a question. Are you going to fund it the same way as you did the other one? Or how are you going to go about obtaining the funds for this new heights?
Well, that is still a big challenge, and right now there is one or two organizations that are possibly interested in being sponsors, and I'm going to continue to develop the outreach and the sponsorship. That, again, like with the original Conquering Heights project, was a challenge, and it's the same. Given that's the same kind of project, it'll be the same challenge is there, except it'll be a little bit larger scale.
Excellent. How long do you anticipate the Greenland expedition will take to accomplish?
The Greenland expedition will take approximately a month. I'm looking at about 30 days, depending on the route I take. But the route I'm looking at about 30 days approximately, and it's about a 350 to 400 mile trek across the southern portion of Greenland. If I decide to choose a longer route, which is more in the central part, which is about 500 or 600 miles, it would take about a month and a half. But I'm probably most likely going to stick with the shorter route.
Paul, if our viewers wish to help you in your expedition and participate in some way, how can they do that?
Well, there's a website. I have a website, and also there's two promo videos that have been produced that gives a brief explanation of the Greenland project and of the expedition.
Excellent. What is the URL of the website for our viewers?
Well, the website is called Expedition Autism, Expedition-Autism, and the promo videos. One of those is on National Geographic.
Excellent.
National Geographic website. We were applying for funding.
Really good. And finally, is there a place where our viewers can catch the entire Conquering the Heights video that you made?
Yes, the Conquering Heights video is on YouTube, and you just go onto YouTube and look under Conquering Heights and the produce under William Davenport. And you type in those two words in YouTube, and that should take you to the Conquering Heights video.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Paul. I know we'll be hearing a lot more from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith.
You're very welcome.
I saw all the needs that needed to be addressed, and one of the things that inspired me was to do a project to address the autism issues. There were people that were skeptical of whether I could pull this off or not, and that was a big issue during the planning stages all the way up to the expedition itself. Two-year period of development from 2004 to 2006 when the expedition actually took place. There were times when I had doubts in my mind and was discouraged, but somehow I just kept pushing forward because I had a vision and I wanted to see the vision through. Conquering Heights is a project to take on and to reach impossible goals. I skied 62.5 miles over rough terrain in snow and inclement conditions across the Sierra Nevada mountains in California to raise funds and awareness for the autism community. And we started off, and it was a wet snow. It was pouring rain, wet snow. We took off.
Following that man right there. See you later.
All right. We skied about 5 miles for the first leg of it, and we camped out in skiing in wet and very inclement weather in the wet, snowy conditions. Then that night, the wet snow turned to dry snow, and we got about about 1.5 to 2 feet dumped on us throughout that night.
All right, gentlemen, let's take two.
All right.
Yeah, where are we at?
That's South Fork of the Tuolumne River.
Yes, sir.
On Highway 120.
It's a pretty powerful river here, huh?
Very powerful. You can hear it in the background. Another 5 miles, and we camped out that night. The storm let up, and then we had freezing weather. It got down to near 0 that night, and we were all cold. Everything was all wet, but we just made the best of it and slept the best that we could. And after the cold, miserable night, the next morning we started off again.
Okay, it's our third day at 10 a.m.
And we took turns breaking the trail, and it was a slow traverse, a slow trek, mile after mile. Go from there, and if we want to push on a couple more, we can.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if not, then
Sounds good.
that's it.
I think McSway Meadows could be a delightful place. And but yeah, we'll see how we feel when we get there, and then that sets us up for 2 days of 8 pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
To get to Tenaya Lake, which is
So
desirable.
We trekked along. We trekked about another 8 miles from Tenaya Lake to the hut, and with a total distance that day of 12 miles. We made it to the hut. We were all exhausted, but in really good spirits, the Tuolumne Meadows hut, and we got the best night's sleep of the whole expedition. It's like my 8 hours sleep went by in a blink of an eye. Hey, how's
How's it going?
So we were skiing down as we were skiing down the last part of Highway 120 on the Levining Canyon, down that steep slope of the road, steep incline. We stopped at our lunch spot, and all we had left in our food supply was just crumbs, and so we ate all the rest of the crumbs, a few crackers, a little bit of, a few nuts. I got the last scoop of peanut butter, and then we pushed on to our final destination. At this point, we had to take off our skis because then the snow gradually gave way, and then we walked the last several miles down to the snow gate. And then that was the end of the trip. I was physically spent, but I felt really exuberant. I felt spiritually and just emotionally in every way just uplifted, like I had gone to heaven, like I had completed a major mission. and a real major sense of accomplishment. With completing the Conquering Heights project, the Sierra Nevada expedition, I am now looking ahead to a much bigger project of the same scope, crossing the ice cap of Greenland, which would take about a month, leading with the same kind of objectives to raise funds and awareness, mostly awareness for the autism community and to spearhead projects. And in addition to that, make a documentary about that and to showcase what people on the autism spectrum can do.
Now we'll be speaking with Alex Buttery. Will, if you can take it from here.
Gladly, Keith. Alex, tell us about your own educational background.
I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 30, and along the way I knew I was different. I was misdiagnosed for years and years, and it took me 12 years to complete a degree. And again, I was facing the stuff like Paul was facing with the note-taking, and I just use books on tape and recorders.
How did you get into teaching?
That was interesting. People said, "Why don't you teach this stuff? Because you have so much knowledge that you can give back to the autistic community." And I always knew I wanted to do something like that.
How long did it take to get you into teaching?
Probably all my 12 years of college. And once I did that, I was able to hardship trying to find employment, so I had various odd jobs that I hated.
Tell us about your job with the San Francisco School District.
I work now for the San Francisco School District. I'm a full-time sub. I work with kids with autism anywhere from pre-K to high school.
Tell us about the schools you've worked at.
Ranging from Francis Scott Key to Lowell High School to Mission High and Presidio Child Development Center, and various other schools.
How did you get your job at the school district?
I was internshipping for a special ed thing, unpaid internship, and the lady there said you should apply for the school district and you'd be good at it. And so I applied and I got on no benefits, just a day-to-day sub, and I worked myself up by serving a year and a half.
How has autism affected your education and social skills?
Well, I knew I was different from early on, but I just learned to adapt and blend in with the community, and if I can be normal for a day, that was always my ticket to freedom with being a social. As long as they don't say anything, I don't have to disclose if I have a disability or not. And I'm able to adapt that way day in and day out. I struggle.
Time.
Thank you, Will. Alex, I understand we have a brief video of you at school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was shot for the Arc of San Francisco, produced it. Me working in schools in San Francisco. And I think it would show how I interact with, children with special needs.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing that right now. Okay. Welcome to this week's program of Aascend Life on the Autism Spectrum. I'm Keith Halperin, your co-host, and this is Will Bernick.
Hi, Keith. Great
Hi.
to see you again.
Likewise. Today, our guests include Paul Nussbaum, Aascend board member and ski expedition leader, and Alex Buttery, Aascend member and educator. Will, would you take it from here?
Gladly, Keith. I have a couple of questions for Paul and Alex. My
Okay.
first question is for Paul. When did you know you had autism?
Well, I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum when I was struggling with employment and social disconnect issues at the age of 40 which was 1997, about 16 years ago approximately. And that's when I first became aware of it. And before that, it was like the mystery disability because I was still going through those struggles.
I've always been interested in special ed because I am on the spectrum myself, and I always thought I could give back to the community that way.
And we're going to be in charge of the water table this morning.
Oh, joy, okay.
Yes, it's all set up.
Okay. Administrators were in awe that I have a degree and have autism. You know, I'm on the spectrum, and I know how to help kids.
Chloe.
There we go. Yeah, see it float.
That was very interesting, Alex.
Thank you.
As a teacher, what have you found to be the biggest challenges in educating special needs children?
I'm more of a teacher's aide, but I felt that the regular teacher doesn't know how to handle special needs children, and she or he turns to an aide like me to figure out what the heck is wrong with a kid, I find. And it's a big challenge to be thrown in that role, but that is usually what I find my role is assisting the teacher in figuring out, okay, how do I help this person? And I find myself making diagnoses before the even teacher gets to the student.
That's really interesting. And is this teacher or these teachers who don't seem to be able to handle the special needs children, are they actually special education teachers themselves?
Yeah,
or?
they are. But they have no training in special ed. After they get their degree, they're just thrown into just teaching, is what I'm finding out.
That is a big surprise.
Yeah.
And not a good one.
Yeah.
What challenges have you faced as a person on the autistic spectrum in both your work in general and in your work with these other special needs kids?
I find it becoming easier to work with them because I am one of them. But I know more tricks than most of the teachers of how to look at, education another way, how to learn math another way, and writing another way.
That's very interesting. Can you give me examples of that? I mean,
we had a kid who, could not hold a pencil, and so we got him one of those pencils where you just hold with one finger, and he was able to write his full name. And this guy couldn't even spell.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. Have you ever thought about putting on a presentation for these teachers? Since it sounds like a lot of them are pretty close, unfortunately, to clueless about dealing with special needs kids.
I have. I mean, that video was circulated to the San Francisco Unified of the ARC's, with the ARC's permission, and a lot of the teachers have came up to me and said, "Oh, now I know how to teach better."
Excellent. Do you have any plans about doing any further types of teaching for the special needs
Not
children?
right now. I'm just focused on what I'm doing now and see where it takes me.
Excellent, excellent.
Well, Keith, another fine show.
Yes, indeed. And folks, we thank you for your viewing on our program, and we want to let you know that this is actually your program. So whether you are on the spectrum, have a friend or family member who is, or a professional who deals with us, we want to hear from you. If you've got something to tell, something to say, something to show, please send it in to the information below. And that's it for this week of Aascend Live on the Autism Spectrum.
It,
Cut.
thanks for tuning in.